Hi, I'm Tom Stephenson, and welcome to Construction Project Management Tips. Today, we're going to be talking about team development, and we're going to be looking at the Tuckman model. When you talk about you think about teams and how they come together for a construction project, it can be quite complex, and very often people may have worked together before or they may not. Probably more likely that they may not have worked directly before, particularly if it's a larger construction business or company, especially if it's very large projects as well. So there's a lot to consider, and it's good to understand what are the basics about team development. So Bruce Tuckman, in the mid 1960s developed this model, and it really has 5 stages to it. Well, to be honest, it had 4 stages originally, and he added a stage about 10 or 15 years later. And it's widely known, widely utilized, and it forms a good basis point to think about team development and basically the behavior, the communication process, the building of those relationships, and what's some of the distinguishing features between successful team development and unsuccessful team development. And so I think as a construction manager, a site super, a project manager, foreperson, all of these things you should consider when developing a new project or coming together on a new project. So the first stage is referred to as forming. And as I just go back for a second here, the 5 stages that Tuckman originally had was forming, storming, norming, performing. Nice how they rhyme. It makes it easy to remember. Adjourning, as I said, he kind of added a little bit later. It's trying with the ing at the end. And we'll get into each one of these step by step. So, forming. Well, when we have groups come together, we're forming. And you know what? Very often when we form groups, we're still in development of some of our some aspects of our goals and objectives. And we've talked about, goals and objectives in previous sessions. You want to look at things like time, cost, quality, but there's a lot of other things that you also want to think about as far as, what are the goals for the group and what are we trying to achieve as a team, those types of things. And they're not really worked out yet. When you're forming, this is coming together, and that means people aren't sure of what's going on. And so people are a little bit more tentative in the beginning process, Tuckman would say. You want to get to know each other. You're a little bit maybe more polite than normal, a little bit more guarded on what you say. You're trying to get a lay of the land. You don't want to really cause conflict at this stage. And you want to be accepted into the group or the tribe, if we want to use some of the terms that is often used in this particular area. People like to have a sense of belonging, and they don't want to be outcast. And that goes back to our primitive minds and our primitive mindsets, for survival. So group behavior is inhibited. We're not being probably our truest self in the forming sessions, which is fine. We need to go through this process in order to better understand everybody's sort of viewpoints and that sort of thing. The storming stage is, well, now people are trying to sort of set out their turf, and they're pushing boundaries, and they're seeing what they can do and what they can't do. So it's really sort of that testing of the water. So that's why the storming sort of title comes in. And people begin to learn, what's sore spots with some people, what's areas that you maybe don't want to push people into, depending on what it is. Personal type things where some people don't want to cross certain lines. People who are more introverted or extroverted, getting a better understanding of that and trying to get you're really trying to get a lot of your own sort of viewpoints in at that point, especially the alphas in the group that may be wanting to sort of dominate things in that way. And what's very important with the storming stage, if you're a leader and you see, because it's kind of following through these stages, is that you want to make sure that things don't get personal, because sometimes people lose sight of what you're there for. And that's why it's so important in the forming stage to really clarify those goals and to have that goals lined up. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound, SMART goals. And if you're not sure what that is, go check one of the earlier PM tips videos that I've done. So we want to keep the interactions professional. We want to ensure the problem is the problem, not the people, right? That's keeping it professional. And this is, when you think about it, this is where company's culture comes into play, and this is where what's right comes into play. And if you want to be successful as a team and a group, we've been talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. You're not going to be successful as a business in this day and age and this time period if you're not including everybody in the conversation. If you're excluding people from the team, you want to make sure that people have the ability to speak their mind and that they can do it in a way that they feel safe at the same time. So team dynamics, the storming, all of these things are coming out in the team's culture. Even though the business may have a culture, the overall team will end up having its own kind of culture that generally reflects the overall business, but then it can have some nuances based on the group dynamics that are created. All right, so it's kind of an aspect of having grit involved in this process, because you have to see it through. And as a leader, you have to kind of, go through the rough waters with the team, because now you can see land on the other side. And that's, the sun is going to come up at a certain point if you do it well. If you don't do it well, you kind of get stuck in this storming environment, and that's not a good thing. And that's where you can have a very dysfunctional team, to be quite honest. So if you're spending most of your time in the storming section, you're not getting stuff done. And we want to get stuff done. We want to get things to be norming, come into a more normal environment. And we want the team to come through it. So we've pretty much at that point come to some consensus on roles and who's responsible for what. And that ties to the goals, and that ties to then the storming, clarifying the roles and positions of people and who's responsible for what. And that gets us to have more agreement. It's not that you shouldn't have conflict. Conflict is good. But when it's about the project, when it's somebody's questioning something, somebody should be able to say, I don't think that's the right way. Maybe we should try this way. And that, if they're afraid to say that, that's going to be a problem. So you want to be able to have those conversations. But norming is people aren't afraid to have that, and people are into the project, and you're getting that agreement and that healthy professional debate. It should be encouraged, right? You don't want everybody sort of norming is not, okay, so the alphas have taken over and half the group is just shut down. No, then you're still you're in a kind of boiling, simmering, storming stage, which you don't want to have in a project. Performing, well, now we're doing, right? We're really getting into it, and not only do we know the roles and what's responsibilities and clarifying things, we're really actually getting things done, right? And so now we know, everybody knows what they need to do, and they're doing it. And of course, we're meeting and collaborating and engaging with each other. And if we do this well, this is really where you get into flow. If you look at Mihaly's research on flow theory, people are able to feel good about what they're doing. They're in their zone. They know what they're responsible for. And if they need help, they're not afraid to get help, because you form these strong relationships in the forming, storming, and norming stages, and people kind of get each other. That's it. And it's not that everybody thinks exactly the same. It's that you get the other person, and you want to do the best for the team and for the other person, and of course for yourself. So now you got this great collaboration that's going on that way. And of course, all projects, they come to an end. And this slide on group dynamics, adjourning, really comes at the end. So if you did the other four really well, you formed the group really well, you went through that storm and you began to understand each other, you started to understand where people are coming from, then you went from basically the storming to the norming, and things are leveling out and people know what their responsibilities are. And then you're executing, you're performing. Now you're at the adjourning. You went through the project, you collaborated well together. You know what? In all honesty, then basically you're actually sad to see this project finish. You may celebrate the end of the project, but because it was such a great thing and you really liked working with each other, that's the adjourning. Or as Tuckman also put in brackets, mourning, like you're upset that it's over because you actually enjoyed the process. So as a leader, there's a lot of things that you need to do to make all of those things happen really well. And You got to be patient, and you got to know that there is this kind of process and nothing is perfect. Humans are humans, people are people, but work through it. And most important, have respect for people and keep it professional the whole way through. And then the rest will be history, as they say, on a positive note. So if you enjoyed this video and you like the construction PM tips, please click the subscribe icon, leave a comment, and click notifications to see future ones as we build this community in the future. I'm Tom Stephenson, wishing you a wonderful day, and let's build together. Bye for now.